Good evening. Welcome to the April 9th, 2024 City Council meeting. The meeting is hereby called to order. Members of the public may attend this City Council meeting in person or may watch and listen remotely by viewing the meeting on Channel 8 WCTV and the city's website at www.wayzata.org/WCTV. Public comment during the public forum and/or public hearing portions of the meeting may be provided in person at the meeting, in advance, or by logging into the Zoom call and raising your hand during the public hearing. When your name is called in the meeting, you will be seen and heard in our council chambers and the cable channel. You will be asked to unmute, and then you may begin your comment. All public comments must include your full name and address. Second item on the agenda this evening is the Pledge of Allegiance. I would ask everyone to please stand if able and follow along. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Third item on this evening's agenda is the roll call. Let the record reflect that all members of the council are in attendance this evening. And moving on, our next item is to approve the agenda. May I have a motion to approve the agenda as is, or would anyone care to make any changes?
I'll approve the agenda as is, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilmember McDonald. Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion passes, and we will move on to the public forum. As a reminder, for those members of the public in attendance this evening who are interested in speaking, we ask that you please state your name, address, indicate if you are representing a group, and we ask that you limit your comments to 3 minutes. The item you wish to speak about is something that is on the agenda. For those that are in person, we ask that you fill out a form at the table in the back of the room and hand it to staff. For those that are watching via Zoom, please send a note via the chat function to staff and let them know what agenda item you wish to speak on. We also require that your camera is turned on when you speak. We have a couple of items that are on the public forum this evening. The first is the swearing in of Ceremonial Police Reserve Officer John Robards. City Manager.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Good evening, Council. Yes, Chief Schultz is going to do the swearing in. A very important swearing in. I'll let him do the introduction, but really happy to have community member John Robards here for this special occasion.
Wonderful. Good evening, Chief.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council, City Manager Dahl, thank you. I was told by a couple of our current police officers today that they actually began their law enforcement careers here in Wayzata as reserve officers back in 1997, I think. So our department's had a history of several reserve officers, but John will be the only honorary or ceremonial reserve officer in our ranks for the time being. John, I'll explain how he's been a great partner for us in the past and how we'll continue that partnership moving forward. A few just little notes. Since reserve officers are volunteers, we typically wouldn't hold an official swearing in like this for a reserve officer like we do with our sworn officers. But John had asked me, am I going to have a swearing in? And I said, sure. We'd love to do that. Plus, it's a good way for me to share with you all kind of what John has done for our department, what he means to me, and what he means to the rest of our staff. As you may know, when we do these swearing-ins for officers, I asked them to help me come up with sort of a bio of their lives. And I also asked them to share one thing about them that most people may not know, just so we get to know them as people. So with that, John Robards was, come on closer, far away. John Robards was born in Bulgaria and spent the first few years of his life in what he remembers as a very crowded orphanage until he was adopted and brought to the United States at around, I think, 4 years old. John stated that his initial experience with law enforcement wasn't a positive one because he remembers that while in that crowded orphanage, the staff would threaten to call the Bulgarian police officers over if the children misbehaved. And that helped form some early fears for police against, police that John had to overcome as he came to the United States. After moving to the U.S., John has spent his entire life living in Wayzata, so he's a lifelong resident essentially, where he went to school and then worked at Lunds and Byerly's, and now most recently at the Wayzata Community Church. I had the opportunity to meet John and his family a few years ago when I first became chief. John came to our police department and introduced himself and told us he was interested in partnering with us, with Wayzata PD in particular, for Special Olympics and the Law Enforcement Torch Run. Additionally, John asked if we as local law enforcement officers would be interested in providing opportunities for some of our community residents who, had special needs. And he quantified that by saying, we just want to spend time with cops and learn to break down those barriers. And much like the barriers that he initially may have had coming to the United States. So we said, heck yes, let's do that. We jumped on the chance. And over the next couple of years, many of us at the WPD have had the opportunity not only to get to know John, but we've also learned what it means to be a unified partner in Special Olympics now. John began helping our agency with our roles in several of our community special events. He's become an important team member on our police softball team for the last several years when we compete against the fire department. And we've had the opportunity also to spend some really invaluable time with John and his friends each fall during the Light Up the Lake Parade when they help us decorate our makeshift float and pass out light sticks and participate in that beautiful parade. So we thank him for that. And because John has invested so much time in us, we wanted to return the favor and make him an honorary reserve police officer for the Wayzata Police Department. He's agreed to continue to help us help his community in any way that he can. So I've assured John that his roles and responsibilities won't change a whole lot. He's just going to be doing what he's been doing with us in the same capacity, but just now as an official volunteer. John's been a great community steward, a very effective Special Olympics torch run ambassador, and more importantly, he's been a good friend. I almost forgot. One thing that many people may not know about John is that he's an accomplished landscape photographer. He's true talent for photography and has taken some of the best photos of the Wayzata landscape, downtown, lakefront, that I've seen. You may have seen him walking around town during the early morning hours trying to catch that right light for that perfect picture, right? So with that, I'd like John to come up and we'll swear him in as our newest honorary reserve officer. Ready? Okay, John. Raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, John Robards,
I, John Robards,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
to support the Constitution
to support the Constitution
of the United States,
of the United States,
the Constitution of the State of Minnesota,
the Constitution of Minnesota,
and to discharge faithfully
and to discharge faithfully
the duties of the office
duties of the office
of Ceremonial Police Reserve
of Ceremonial Police Reserve Officer
of the City of Wayzata, Minnesota,
of the City of Wayzata, Minnesota,
to the best of my judgment and ability.
to the best of my judgment and ability.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Yeah.
So pinning John's badge on is an important part of this process. And tonight, John has asked his lifelong mentor and current boss at the Wayzata Community Church, John Estrom, to come up and help with this. So.
sign your P number real quick? Perfect.
Well, wonderful. I traditionally say a few words for the swearing of our police officers and our fire department personnel. I am so proud to call you one of our newest officers. We have a tradition of volunteerism in this beautiful city of ours. And Officer Robarts, your dedication to this community and to this department is noted and appreciated. We're so very grateful to have you as a lifelong resident and to really share your special talents with the rest of us and the rest of this town. So welcome to the department, and as a city volunteer, we look forward to seeing you in November for our volunteer dinner, certainly. And to your family, it is also lovely to see our partners from the Wayzata Community Church and our neighbors and friends here as well this evening. So I'd like to invite you, if you'd like to say a few words. You don't have to if you don't want to, but if you would like to, the microphone is yours. Congratulations.
All I want to say is thank you for everyone that has supported me on this path.
So I think we had a request or two for some photos, if that would be okay with the council.
Oh, of course. Of course.
Jamie, would you?
There we go, a very short recess so that we may take some photos with our new officer. All right, we are back in session, and we are still in the public forum, and still on a high note after that amazing swearing in. But next up, we have a proclamation proclaiming the month of May as Arbor Month. City Manager.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to welcome up our city forester, arborist, Bennett Myron. The city has been an active participant in both participating as a Tree City USA and an Arbor Month as well, an Arbor Day. Bennett's going to talk a little bit more about what this means, and we ultimately have a proclamation, Mayor, for you to read too. Big shoes to fill after the last public forum, but I'm confident Bennett will be able to compete.
So city, what is it? City Forester. There were two titles there.
Official title is City Forester, but he's our arborist. Is that correct, Bennett?
Sure, yeah.
AKA Tree Guy.
Certified
Right.
arborist. I'm
Or
sorry.
X, whatever.
Perfect.
Thanks, you guys. Council, Madam Mayor, I know we've done this many years now, but I want you to know it's really appreciated. I know it's mostly ceremonial, but it really does mean something. It for the city to formally recognize the value of our trees and our canopy, which we do in a lot of ways, but to dedicate this month to this resource that we have and value is really important. But I wanted to mention that it's not just ceremonial, actually. It's to receive Tree City USA status from the Arbor Day Foundation and to receive a growth award, which we have the last 2 years. It means that when we apply for a grant with Urban Forestry Connections, they consider that, and it factors into the equation. So there's a lot of stuff like that where it really translates to a difference in how we care for our trees and the capacity that we have to do that. So thank you very much, and I hope to see you all on May 18th. We have an Arbor Month celebration down on the plaza from 11 to 12. We're going to give away some trees. We're going to have a little presentation from our longtime partner and consulting arborist, Manuel Jordan. And we're going to have our second annual Champion Tree Contest. So you can nominate your favorite big tree. And there's two winners, the one with the biggest trunk and the one with the tallest canopy. Each of those will receive a $100 gift card.
Wonderful.
So it'll be a good time. So
Love it.
thank you again.
Absolutely. So I will go ahead and read the proclamation. It's a proclamation designating Arbor Month in Wayzata. Whereas the health of the people is tied to the health of their forests, and whereas planting and maintaining trees mitigates the effects of climate change by absorbing carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, and whereas trees and green spaces play a major role in improving mental and physical health, and whereas trees in our city increase property values, enhance the economic vitality of business areas, and beautify our community, and whereas forests create high-quality drinking water by acting as a natural filter, and whereas trees, wherever they are planted, are a source of joy and spiritual renewal, and whereas each year on the last Friday of April, Arbor Day, and throughout the month of May, Minnesotans pay special tribute to rural and community trees and all the natural resources and dedicate themselves to the continued vitality of our state's forests. And whereas May 18th, 2024, the city of Wayzata will distribute native shade trees for planting on private property, whereas on May 18, 2024, the City of Wayzata and Parks and Trails Board will host an Arbor Month event, which will feature an educational presentation, champion tree contest, and other tree-related activities. Now therefore be it proclaimed that this Wayzata City Council, on behalf of the citizens of Wayzata, proclaim May 2024 as Arbor Month in the City of Wayzata. Hear, hear. City manager, city attorney, does the council need to vote? The
Madam Mayor,
proclamation is
no,
sufficient.
that's not necessary. That's sufficient. Thank you.
All right, fantastic. It's a beautiful document for our city forester. Wonderful. Well, thank you very much. All right, we are still in the public forum, and this evening we have received, I don't know if anybody's online.
Madam Mayor,
Commissioner Misty?
nobody's online.
Okay, we did receive one form, someone who would like to speak in the public forum, and I'd like to welcome back Ms. Mary Bader.
Thank you, Mayor. My name is Mary Bader. I live at 117 PV Lane in Wayzata. It's wonderful, positive things that have happened so far in this meeting. I almost feel like Debbie Downer coming before you again. But on March 12th, I presented a request to the City Council to consider passage of a resolution that called on our federal government to demand an immediate ceasefire and delivery of humanitarian aid to the people of Gaza, where much of the world now believes that the United States is complicit in a genocide. Since then, I have learned that the Council is reluctant to consider or even to discuss such a resolution, and I'm sorry about that. It's been almost a month since I was here and presented the resolution to you. Since that time, the death toll of Gaza has risen to beyond 32,000 people, the majority of them women and children. Thousands more dead lie buried underneath the rubble of the buildings demolished by American bombs, American-made bombs. Thousands of surviving children have been made orphans. Thousands of others have lost their limbs. Homes, hospitals, schools, churches, mosques turned to rubble, paid for by your tax dollars and mine. I'm here tonight to ask you to please reconsider, stand up for our American values by passing a resolution for an immediate ceasefire and delivery of humanitarian aid to the people of Gaza at the scale they need. I'm told that perhaps you believe it is not the role of local government to pass resolutions like this. But more than 100 American cities have passed humanitarian and ceasefire resolutions such as this, the one that I've asked you to consider. The cities passing these resolutions do so to defend American values and put pressure on our senators, representatives, and president to stop the bloodbath in Gaza. I'm told that our city council is nonpartisan. It's true that you did not run for office under the sponsorship of political parties, but that does not prevent you from taking stands on what's right and wrong. Nor do you avoid taking votes that please some constituents and displease others. You were elected to weigh the issues and be the deciders. So I must ask you, is it nonpartisan to avoid denouncing a genocide? Is it nonpartisan to avert our eyes from genocide? Especially when we are the ones providing the bombs, the guns, the veto votes at the United Nations? Where is our conscience? Where is our commitment to the values of our Constitution? We all pledged allegiance to the flag of the United States of America tonight, and that was lovely. Please make that patriotic pledge stand for the values we proclaim that it does, and not for complicity in genocide. Thank you very much for your time. I hope you'll please reconsider.
Thank you, Ms. Bader. We don't, in a matter of public forum, and as a former council member, I'm sure you can appreciate, we don't have an obligation to respond to items that come up in the public forum. I do feel compelled, however, to just share, this isn't, on my tenure, definitely as mayor and previously as a council member, the first time that a national or international issue has been requested that we weigh in on. Everything from abortion rights to guns and gun control, conflicts such as this, and As we know, there are hundreds, if not thousands, of conflicts around the world that are happening as we speak. It is an unfortunate time in our history, and on so many different levels. The dialogue amongst parties and about issues is one where it is very divided. One thing I am proud of this council and previous councils is that this is a council that has remained united in terms of the types of issues that we will pass resolutions on. And they are not resolutions on a national level. I would encourage folks that feel one way or the other to reach out to their state legislators and their federal elected officials and federal government to speak. That is not our place to do so here. And I feel very strongly about that. I also feel very strongly that we are a compassionate body, both as a council, city staff, and as a community. And it is a community that is hurting on both sides, with pain on both sides of this one particular issue. And that we hope, and I will speak on behalf of my colleagues, because I've gotten to know them over the years, that we hope for peace. We hope that there is dialogue, that there is resolution, that there is humanity, and that there is compassion. And that's what we stand here for, and it is not one to pass our beliefs about one side versus the other, regardless of how difficult a topic it is. And so if there is ever anybody who is able to make a compassionate argument for one side or the other, it is you, Ms. Bader, who so eloquently have such a gift of sharing your words, and you make very compelling arguments. But I stand fast in my belief that this is not the forum for that. And of the thousands, you mentioned 100 cities that have passed these resolutions. That is, I would like to see resolutions passed for peace and humanity and kindness for every issue that the world is facing today. And so I appreciate you bringing it forward for our consideration. But as we had communicated previously, it is a policy of this council that we will not entertain resolutions for matters that we do not directly oversee or have control over. So thank you very much. Any other items, City Manager?
No, Madam
Public
Mayor.
forum?
Nope.
All right. Then we will move on for new agenda items. Members of the council, any new agenda items that you would like to discuss at a future meeting? No? All right, then we will move on to the consent agenda. And this evening's consent agenda, we have the following items. We have approval of the city council workshop and regular meeting minutes of March 26, 2024. We have approval of the check register. We have approval of municipal licenses. We have authorization to solicit bids for a City Hall window replacement project. We have approval of professional services agreement, with Twin Cities Sound and letters of agreement with artists for Sunday music in the park. We have award of contract to MP Asphalt Maintenance for 2024 crack sealing project. Award of contract to Corrective Asphalt Materials LLC for 2024 street rejuvenation project, and approval of amended contract with Rainbow Tree Company. Members of the council, do any of you have any questions for any of those items or wish to pull an item for further discussion? No? No? All right. And would someone care to make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented?
So moved.
Oh, I have a motion from Councilmember Parkhill and a second.
I'll second that.
All right, the motion's been first and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. We will move on to new business. And under new business, if consider approval of first reading of ordinance 836, amending City Code Chapter 309, use of public parks, and Chapter 318, municipal docks. City Manager.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Our wonderful, intelligent, and motivated Parks and Environment Planner, Nick Keyser, is going to walk us through this one.
Thank you,
That
Mayor.
was quite the introduction.
It's all true, though.
Yes.
That's amazing. Madam Mayor, Council, good evening. So like Manager Dahl said, I'll be going over the Ordinance 836, which essentially is the first reading to amend City Codes Chapter 309, Use of Public Parks, and Chapter 318, Municipal Docks. So I'll go over a bit of background as to how we got to this point, and then I'll go over the specific changes or proposed amendments here in this presentation. So start with background. Obviously, we're opening up the new Lake Walk and docks that is currently being constructed right now. Hopefully opening this summer. And so these proposed city code amendments are to help with management and operations of that space, of the new Lake Walk and docks. The proposed code amendments were reviewed by the Panaway District Committee and the Dock Design Working Group when that was still a group at the time, and then most recently by the City Council at a workshop. So I listed the main policy items here, and I'll go into these a little bit more in detail in these next slides. But just to kind of summarize the policy items that we're reviewing here tonight, the first is the boat parking payment system, time limits for mooring, open operating hours and seasons, so when the Lake Walk and dock should be open and what hours they should be open and what seasons should they be open, swimming, fishing, smoking, wheeled devices, pets, and alcohol. So those are the policy items that we're going to be reviewing here tonight. So in this table on the left, you can see the policy item, and then on the right is kind of a summary of the proposed code amendment that is in the Ordinance 836 for review here tonight. So probably one of the most significant ones is the boat parking pay system. So the proposed code amendments for this policy item essentially lets the city manager to set the parking zones and set the parking rates or the fees for the boat parking payment system. And we'll have, if these code amendments are approved, we'll have an agreement in the next agenda item with Park Mobile that will be the vendor for that system. So the fees currently proposed to be charged at $4 per hour for the smaller boats, 6 feet to 32 feet, and $6 per hour for the larger boats, 32 to 50 feet. So that's the first one. So essentially the first one, the boat parking pay system, allows the city manager a little bit of flexibility if we need to change those rates or zones at any time, say for a special event or anything like that, or in the future if we need to increase or decrease those fees. Time limits for mooring. So essentially boat parking on the slips, at the slips, again, allows the city manager to set those time limits, somewhat similar to the on-street parking that we currently have. Have that same kind of language for the boat parking as well. We're recommending a 3-hour mooring time limit. Now the 3-hour time limit isn't included in the code itself, just that the city manager has the ability to change that and set those time limits. So the main way that we'll be educating folks on that is signage that will go alongside all the rules and regulations of the Lake Walk and docks down in the space. Dock mooring open hours. There's no specific code changes with this, mainly because it's a part of the public parks in the code right now, and we actually specified each of the Panaway Plaza, Depot docks, Broadway docks, and the Lake Walk itself to be called out as a public park. So it would be consistent with the public park hours of 5 a.m. to 10:30 p.m. Swimming, essentially we are just noting in the code that swimming is prohibited off the Lake Walk and docks. One other note that we're currently working on is some small signage at the step downs on the Lake Walk, just to ensure people and educate people that you can't be swimming off those step downs. 'Cause that might be enticing to some people. Fishing, we noted that fishing would be allowed on the docks from 5 a.m. to 10 a.m. Daily, but no fishing off of the lake walk. Smoking, we didn't make any code changes. This happened with some code changes previously. But essentially, the code states that smoking is prohibited on the lake walk and docks or in Panway as a whole. Wheeled devices, in the code amendments, it notes essentially that you can have mobility aids or devices such as wheelchairs or strollers or those types of devices, but you can't have any recreational devices, say a bike, a skateboard, that sort of thing. Pets, we are still allowing pets on the lake walk and docks. So essentially there's no code changes with this. The one thing that we can note is that we're working, and I believe there's one at the Broadway docks right now near the entrance, but we'll ensure there's dog waste stations near the entrances of both the depot docks and the Broadway docks. Alcohol, again, no code changes with this because it already exists in the code, just saying that alcohol is prohibited in Panway. Operating hours for the lake walk, same thing with the lake walk compared to the docks. Have those hours at 5 a.m. to 10:30 p.m. So no code changes with that, but that is the hours they would be open. And then the seasons, the lake walk is open. There was some discussion on this. The one thing that we would note here is that the lake walk and or the docks would be closed off to the public, especially if there's a heavy snowfall, to make sure we can get out there and clear the snow before people walk on it or any other safety measure we need to close that off for. So essentially the lake walk would be open all seasons, just potentially closed if there is safety concerns. So that's a general summary of the policy items that are incorporated into Ordinance 836. So overall, staff recommends approval of Ordinance 836 to chapters 309 and 318. The next steps, if the ordinance is approved, the second reading will be on the next council meeting on April 23rd. And then this alongside the future agreement on the second item here tonight, we would continue to work with Civitas and Park Mobile to create and order those signs to educate users on the rules and regulations kind of noted here down in the space. And that is the proposed motion, but I'll bring it back to Madam Mayor and Council for any questions.
Wonderful, thank you, Nick. Council, questions for Parks Planner Nick Keiser? Yes, Councilmember Parkhill?
More of a comment, I would say. I'm wondering if there's, one of the beautiful things about Wayzata is the summers are just so precious. And I know several people that take their boat to work. And could there be a day, or maybe Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, when it would be okay to park from 8 to 5 at the docks? They pay, but I'm just something to consider. And maybe that's something that when we do the Wayzata, do some benefit for the Wayzata residents, we can incorporate that in then. But I just think it would be a nice thing to have. I think I'll hold my second comment. Thank you.
Wonderful, thank you. Other questions, comments? Yes, Councilmember Iverson.
Hopefully we'll have a nice enough summer so people can do that.
Yeah.
Take a little cruise over. A couple of things I just need some clarification on, and it has to deal with enforcement. After hours and swimming. And have we walked through that thoroughly, or are we kind of waiting to see what happens this summer and then come back and make some recommendations after that? And then I have one other question, but I'll start there.
Yeah, good question, Councilmember Iverson. Enforcement will definitely be a big priority for us this summer, especially with the lake walk and docks opening up. I will say, and I don't want to speak for Chief Schultz or the police department, but we will do sporadic, enforcement reviews down there. I I know we are looking at different safety things to put down at the docks or in the depot park or at the Broadway entrance for safety reasons for swimming, more so. But then enforcement will probably be kind of how we handle enforcement on all our other parks, as kind of an on-call basis. And then obviously the Panaway District Committee is also set up to receive any of that feedback or those comments to see if there's any ways we need to improve or increase enforcement in the future, as we kind of had with the first phase of Panaway, where we made some changes to enforcement down there. So that's just kind of another mechanism we'll use to, if we get any feedback like that.
City Manager.
Madam Mayor, Councilmember Iverson, just going to add on to what Parks and Environment Planner Keiser had mentioned. We haven't had an issue with swimming on the docks. This is the Lake Walk's different mechanism, obviously, but we're going to be mindful of it. As Nick said, the one thing we are going to be proactive on, in addition to just being mindful and watching, is the training of our officers, because this is kind of the first kind of on water really supervision that we're going to be, more so than docks anyway, be having. So the appropriate equipment, the appropriate training, preservers, things like that, they're working on making sure that they're prepared right now.
Okay, thank you. And then at some point, I'm just understanding if a police officer can go alone, or do they have to go in a number, if there's one or two?
Councilmember Iverson, Madam Mayor, they could, just like anything else, they could go alone for sure, unless the chief has anything else to say. If you do, you could nod or.
Yeah, I'm not gonna put you. Just because we live in a different world now, and
Yeah.
for the safety of the officers.
All great questions. We are, as a department, pretty used to addressing that area right now with some of the changes that we've seen. So I don't see that there's going to be a lot of new things for us to address, maybe except for just a little bit more real estate. And we've had some success in dealing with some of the issues of people after hours and things like that. Education's huge. We will very likely start out with educating those who are in violation, probably the first year, and then as that progresses and the word spreads, then move to more of a, citing or warning system after that. So I really don't expect it to be too big of an issue. And like City Manager Dahl said, safety is obviously a big issue, and so we're working on acquiring some safety vests for our officers, ring buoys, things like that, that we can use if someone accidentally goes over the side and needs help, and different ways to get there and communicate, so.
Good, that makes me feel better. Water, not everybody's completely comfortable in water, so the fact that we'll have a couple things in the event that by accident someone goes in, that a family member or a friend can help them, will make me feel better. So, thank you so much. And then quick question, as you guys, the rest of my council members know that I have always spoken up on the amount of signs that we're looking at, and now we're looking at additional signs. So I ask you to please be conscious of the size of those signs and the placement. I don't think it necessarily has to come in front of us again to look at it, but just please take that into consideration. Placement will be really important. Colors will be important. And so having that all right out of the gate will help. But again, I'm trying to reduce the amount of clutter that's down there, so just be creative.
Great thoughts. I think, to Councilmember Iverson's points, the signage is really important, number and placement. And I certainly understand the issue about color. We've been planning every aspect of this project and every element. So that does matter. But we also have some ADA considerations, right, in terms of size and color and what we can and cannot do in terms of signage as well. So just want to make sure that we're taking all of those components and really, I know we have the best of the best working on it, but
Yeah, Madam Mayor, I was just going to mention, typically for that type of signage, we just work with Public Works. For this and for the Lake Walk, we're working with both in-house with Liv Meridino and then also our designers because they want to make sure it looks good too. So we're talking about all the things that you just mentioned.
okay, thank you. Wonderful. Yes, I was working my way down the aisle. Yeah, no, we're still in the question mode. All right, Councilmember Plekish.
Okay, I know we're really talking about kind of the larger view in code language here, and I appreciate that, but I had one point to make, a point of information, I guess, because I know the public is watching this too, and that is with regard to putting in a boat parking pay system, I'd like you to comment about whether there's going to be any cost to the city for doing that.
Yeah, Councilmember Plekish, and we'll definitely go in more detail on the next agenda item too, but there will be no cost to the public to implement that system.
Okay, just want to make sure that was put out there. And then I had a couple of operational questions. One is, again, with enforcement, a little bit different twist though, and that is when we have hours posted for a limit of 3 hours or we have entire hours of operation posted, what do we expect in terms of enforcement if people go past 3 hours or if have their boats still there after the hours are closed?
Yeah, Councilmember Plekish, and since this is a new thing, we probably don't have the best answer, but one of the things that might help us is that we're looking at doing a parking study again this year as well. We're still discussing that too. And that does obviously on-street parking, but we're looking at including the boat parking in that study as well, which will probably give us some more information or data around that. That'll probably be the best data way we can do it. I mean, there's other ways that the police enforce on-street parking time limits as well, which will probably be similar for boat parking as well. So it would be kind of just through the police department to do that enforcement with those time limits.
Okay. And the last thing, I just was curious about allowing fishing, and I know we allow fishing, I'm not saying we shouldn't, but I know that one of the issues has been at times with the fishing line entanglement with the props, and have we thought through that much at all?
It's a good question. We really just did limit the fishing to early in the morning to try to limit as many issues as we can. For later in the day, they can go to different places like the marina. They can certainly go there. But the main way that we had it in there is definitely nothing on the lake walk to not interfere with any of that traffic. But in the docks, it really was just limited in the morning to try to limit any issues with boats coming and going or anything like that, while still allowing.
The assumption is the boats wouldn't be there much early in the morning. Is that what I'm hearing?
And Councilmember Plekish, Madam Mayor, that's how it is now or was before. So we're not changing it. We're actually making it more restrictive in the marina because we used to allow fishing to happen in April at all times of the day when neighbors and community members were starting to put their boats in. That's where we saw the entanglements. So that is we're doing away with that because there's more docks, so there'll be more opportunity to fish. So we're kind of mitigating the problem, but allowing still for the same or a little bit more amount of fishing for the community.
Okay, that's all I had.
Thank you, Councilmember Plekish. Councilmember McDonald, any questions?
Yeah, just a couple, just to sort of piggyback onto Councilmember Parkhill and Plekish's comments about the mooring time. I think, so if the city manager is allowed to set the time limits, how easy is that to do? Are these going to be on these fancy printed signs? We just paid designers to design for us? Because that doesn't seem very flexible. I think it would be worth, like what Councilmember Parkhill said, allowing for some more flexibility during the daytime for people who are either going to work or going to support the businesses.
Councilmember McDonald, Madam Mayor, we tried to really keep it simple and consistent, but because of the flexibility in what we're proposing here, the city manager or Nick working on this, if we're all in alignment and we see that it's not really being utilized during the day, the first 3 days of the week, that we'll be able to make that administrative change if there's really little cost implications there.
Yeah.
And the signs are fairly cheap, and if it's just for, something like this, we could add a temporary kind of addendum to the signs. We'll make them look nice, but I think there's a way we can do that pretty straightforward and not cost too much in terms of changing out the signs if needed.
Well, I felt like I read somewhere about a throwable device on the lake walk, but then I couldn't find that spot. Is
Yeah,
that?
Councilmember McDonald, so we were definitely looking at that option, and we were still discussing it in staff too. I think where we got to a point is that we were going to put some kind of preserver in the Depot Park, just so that people aren't taking it off the lake walk and throwing it in the water too, kind of as a vandalism thing. But we would definitely have something nearby.
I think 600 feet away from a person potentially drowning doesn't sound very effective. So maybe not the best location.
Councilmember McDonald, Madam Mayor, we did have a lot of discussion about that with our public safety officials, other communities, and I think due to vandalism and due to the public safety officers already having equipment, that they all strongly recommended that location. But we can bring it back to them and kind of provide them that feedback.
The water's fairly shallow there. So, okay.
Was that a yes? The water's shallow? Is that?
don't
Councilmember
know.
McDonald was asking with regard to the depth of the water.
Just in general, it can be very deep. It gets deep in the middle of the lake walk pretty quickly. So within, 15, 20 feet, it can get pretty deep. And maybe Chief Schultz had more rationale to add if the council would like to, but we did discuss that a lot.
Do we have throwable devices on our docks?
No, we don't.
I mean, we didn't have them on our H docks. We didn't have them, you have them on a lifeguard stand. Or the lifeguard has one.
Right.
But there isn't any kind of flotation device that's available to the public, generally speaking. I don't know. Any other questions, Councilmember McDonald?
Yes, one more, just about the expectations of the snow removal. I'm very glad that the lake walk will be open all year round. I think that's important. I just don't want us to sign up for more than what we can handle. And people who are out trudging through the snow in Minnesota's winters, we know how to pack down snow and I think could manage. So keep that kind of in your mind as maybe we'll have snow next year. So that was it. Thanks, Mayor.
Great, thank you. I think certainly great comments and questions here this evening about something we've been talking about for a very long time, and now we're getting to that final stage and the final intricacies of how this is all going to work together. With regard to the docks, yeah, I think that it's going to be important. We talked about this in terms of the structure, billing and time limits of mirroring what we allow on the streets, right? So it's similar. You come in a car, it's 3-hour time limit. You come in a boat, it's a 3-hour time limit. But that could change for both, for one, for the other. My recommendation is we continue looking at boating as an alternate form of transportation. I don't think we do that enough in Minnesota, especially given the number of boats. I think the number of people who boat to work is small, but it's not non-existent. And so if we can declutter some roads and Yeah, why not? Let's make that work. I'm not saying change the whole operational direction of where we're going right now, but as we learn about people's habits and how it's operating, I think we need to keep an open mind and come with that data. We talked about police preparedness in terms of training and gear. How different, or what are we seeing with our fire department as well? As they will be integral in any kind of response.
Yeah, good question, Madam Mayor. We haven't discussed any additional training because they do already have some water-related training, and they have a boat, obviously. So that'd be something that I could confirm with the fire department, but I think their training is a little bit more comprehensive in that area where.
It's not just, I think we should confirm it
Yep.
to be certain, but we're not just talking a water emergency. We could be having a medical emergency, an injury, someone slips, falls, whatever the case may be, in the middle of the lake walk. Do we have the appropriate gear for our first responders to get from point A to whatever point B looks like on a lake walk, and transport that person in a safe manner, let's say, who isn't able to move on their own? I don't know if we have that gear.
Yeah, Madam Mayor, good question. We've discussed that, and there wasn't a need for any additional equipment related to that.
Okay.
Given the facility that's being built. I know that with the width of the lake walk being 8 feet, 10 feet, it allows, for example, the four-wheeler that the police have and some of those types of vehicles can get on there if it's needed.
Perfect.
Otherwise, it's about a 600-foot walk between, to the farthest point of access. So based on that, they haven't been or showed a concern for additional equipment that we don't already have to help their public safety services.
We ask the questions, but it's good to get, it allows us to put our heads down at night when we make the decision to move forward. So thank you for the confirmation. And then I have a technical question, and I'm going to show my ignorance when it comes to fishing and fishing regulations in Minnesota. And it has to do with the dates that were written in the proposed ordinance and the fishing opener. So are we saying we can fish before the fishing opener? I would just, I guess, ask that we confirm that the dates in our ordinance align with state law.
Yeah, in any case, the state law supersedes what the city has, but I'm not a fisher. I'm going to sound like an idiot here, but certain kinds of fish are always, you're always able to fish
Always
during the
allowed.
year.
Okay.
I think that's the case. Yeah, Councilmember Iverson's shaking her head, so.
Yes, Councilmember Iverson, would you like to comment?
And a lot of it's catch and release, so there's a difference too.
Okay. So we're not game wardens. We're not checking to see what kind of fish people are fishing, but we will allow them to fish according to state law.
Absolutely.
Okay, very good. See, I don't know these things. This is why I asked.
You and me both.
Okay, perfect. Those are all the questions I had, so thank you. Thank you. Anything else pop up for anybody else throughout this? All right. Okay, so, thank you. Parks and Environmental Planner, Keiser.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Yes. You're gonna have to change your name tag.
Oh, I didn't even.
Or maybe we'll use an acronym or something.
Yeah.
cool.
I think so, yeah.
No, I planner Keiser too, that's fine.
It's PEP. Parks and Environmental Planner, PEP.
I don't know if
I
that
like
fits,
it.
but yeah.
I think we should go with that. All right. So we have a proposed motion before us. Before we go to that, any concerns from the council that we need to flesh out? No? All right. Would someone care then to make a motion to approve the first reading of ordinance 836, amending City Code Chapter 309, use of public parks, and Chapter 318, municipal docks?
Madam Mayor, I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Councilmember Pleckish. Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion passes. And we will move on to the next item under new business. And that is for us to consider approval of professional services agreement with Park Mobile to implement an hourly boat parking system at the Broadway and Depot docks. City Manager.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Mr. Keiser is going to walk us through this item as well as it now relates to the previous action that we just took.
Isn't that Pep Keiser?
Yes. He said Mr. this time.
Thank you.
Sorry, Nick.
All right.
All right, well, so Madam Mayor and Council, like you noted, this is considering approval of an item we just talked about in the ordinance changes, or the code changes, professional service agreement with Park Mobile to implement hourly boat parking system at both the Broadway and Depot docks. So again, I'll just briefly go through some background here, and then I'll go through mainly the system items and how it operates, how it would function, and how it would work for Wayzata. So first here, this really started coming out of diversifying revenue, and it's listed in the 2024-2026 strategic plan as a strategic initiative to look into hourly boat parking options or system at the docks. And since the docks are being currently constructed now, the idea was that this would be a good time to implement something, a new system like this, with the new docks. And so it was viewed by the Panaway District Committee and also the Dock Design Working Group a little bit when they were still formed as well. They reviewed some different options and ultimately came to what is before you here tonight. And obviously the council reviewed this item at both workshops in January and February too, with the ultimate direction of formulating an agreement with Park Mobile to implement this boat parking payment system. So I'll go through the system itself and kind of all the items incorporated into that and into the agreement as well. So the system itself, it's an online system. Again, no upfront cost to the city or any kind of maintenance cost to the city as well. So the main ways that you pay is through a smartphone. You can either download the app, which would make most sense for people that frequent the docks. It's kind of quick and easy to do it that way. You do a text to pay, or you could do a QR code from the sign that would be placed down there, which you can kind of see an example here on the right, or you could call a service number. Each of these options require a credit card or debit card, an online payment for each of these offers. The agreement that is drafted and is proposed here tonight is drafted as a one-year term. So after the first year, we will reevaluate the agreement itself and the system itself to see if we want to continue with this system in the future. Enforcement and communication, I know we've had a little bit of discussion on that just in the last agenda item too. The system itself allows the enforcement officer to check boats pretty efficiently using the app by using license plate numbers of the boats themselves. And really these, at least the first year and maybe into the future, enforcement is really going to be focused on education for the first time. This is a big change for the docks down there, for the boat owners. So education is going to be kind of paramount for us, education and communication. So some of the communication or education plans that we have, first we'd be sending direct communication to the boat owners at the municipal marina. We have that contact information. They're all boat owners. So sending to those folks is going to be important. We'll obviously broadcast this change in the city's media outlets, the portal, weekly social media posts, all of those channels that we have at our disposal. The other aspect is that we do have dock masters down at the docks during the peak activity times, listed there Thursday, Friday, 3 to 9, Saturday and Sunday, 10 a.m. to 9 p.m. So mainly the dock masters will help within education of the change and, point folks to either signs, the QR sign, QR code if they need to scan that on their phone or anything like that, and just kind of help people get educated. The other option, or the other thing we will be doing is signage. And the next slide, I'll go into a little bit more detail on that, but essentially signage will be placed along the docks at strategic locations to help educate folks too, especially during the off-peak hours if the dock masters are not there. So signage, again, Park Mobile will provide the signage at no cost to the city. We will work with them if this agreement is approved to create, city-branded signs, aesthetically pleasing signs as best as we can to be located down there. And really, like we noted before, the goal is to put it in strategic locations to not add to clutter and views from the lake, views to the lake. So the general locations are shown here in yellow for both the Broadway docks and the depot docks. As the docks are constructed, we'll probably be out there finding the exact locations that are the best place to educate people as they're coming and going on these docks. The other option that we'll be looking into is adding sandwich board signs that can be put out, taken off, especially during the peak times if there's a lot of traffic on the docks. Hopefully that'll catch more people's eyes as they're walking to and from the boat slips. So the rates and revenue, I noted the rates before at $4 per hour for the smaller boats and $6 per hour for the larger boats. That is currently what we're proposing here tonight. The other note I wanted to state is that we are currently working with Park Mobile and will work more with them if this agreement is approved to explore options for free or discounted rates for Wayzata residents. They do some of this work with other municipalities, and so we can certainly explore options and see what would work best for Wayzata, but we just need to work through those with Park Mobile and staff to figure out the best option. Again, these rates can be changed easily in the app itself. Again, with the code changes, it allows the city manager to be able to do so. For the fees that we'd be paying, Park Mobile is how they get the money, is they get 45 cents per transaction. And on top of that, there are also credit card fees, which are noted in the agreement as 15 cents plus 3% per transaction. So the estimated revenue ranges, this can vary significantly. This is a new system that we'll be having down at the docks, but we had a general revenue range here, and we used Excelsior as kind of a comparison to what we would have over here, and that estimated revenue range is $55,000 to $83,000. So overall, staff recommends approval of the services agreement with Park Mobile to implement the boat parking payment system. And as I kind of noted, if it's approved, we'll start coordinating more extensively with Park Mobile on the setting up the system and getting signs created and ordered, which will probably be the timely aspect of this, as that could take a little bit more time. But we are going to have those, if approved, have those ready for the opening of the docks. And those would obviously be installed at that time as well. So that I'll bring back to Madam Mayor and Council for any questions.
Thank you. Very good. I will start at this end this time. Councilmember McDonald, any questions for you?
Yes, I just have one quick question. So the hourly amount is based on the size of their boat. But what about if they park a smaller boat in a larger slip? So that seems like it might be a little confusing.
Yeah, good question, Councilmember McDonald. We hope that, well, first, education is going to be key, obviously, with this change. And if the dock masters are there, they will hopefully lead the folks to the correct boat slip. And then it again will be down to education, and if they do park in a larger or more expensive slip, and they see that in the app, they can always come back out and go into the smaller one if there's one available.
So the app kind of has like a map or something of what?
So yeah, we'll be working with Park Mobile on that, but they noted that you can have a map in there that kind of shows the slips, and we might also put slip numbers at each of them too, which will help with the transactions too, to note exactly what slip you're in and what that charge or fee is.
Smart, okay. And then does the app like text you if you're getting close to your 3-hour mark or something?
Yeah, Councilmember, now, good question. It does. I think you can set that range too. So some people do 10 minutes before, 15 minutes before. But we can set that up to get a reminder if they need extended for any reason or anything like that.
Okay, cool, thanks.
Wonderful, thank you. Councilmember Plekish?
Yeah, I don't own a boat, so I'm really not sure about this, but one of your slides showed the license number being on the port side of a boat. So first question is, do these license numbers appear on both sides or just the port side?
Councilmember Plekish, from my understanding, is on both sides.
Okay.
This was pulled from the Minnesota DNR as well, but I believe it's on both sides.
Okay, then I don't need to ask my second question. That's it.
Great, Councilmember Iverson?
I also don't own a boat, but I might park my paddleboard there. Probably not.
License number?
Actually, just kayaks need it. I don't think paddleboards need that, not yet.
Park for free.
I like that. I just want to go on public record saying that at this time, when I look on page 100 and it talks about enforcement, I'm okay moving forward with the police supporting this enforcement right now. But as it moves down the road and it requires a lot of time of our police, I will probably take a completely different view. If we cross that hurdle, I would like, as a council, for us to look at other options that are less costly. So dock masters could be an option to have more people at a lower cost. I don't think that long-term, that using our police officers for that type of enforcement is really smart. So otherwise, I'm comfortable. We've had a lot of discussion about it. I'm be really curious to get feedback from the community and people that come visit, what they think of the fee. But
Wonderful.
that's it.
Thank you, Councilmember Iverson. Councilmember
I've used the
Parkhill?
Park Mobile, and I think it's a really easy, simple app, super easy. And I think you can charge per slip. If it's a big slip, you can charge the $6, whether it's a small boat or not. We can also probably adjust to the 8-hour day if we ever wanted to within there too. My question is on data. What kind of data do we get out of this? Because Councilman McDonald was talking about, having data to make some decisions, and I just assumed we were going to be able to tell the usage rates by hour, by day on this. So do you know what kind of data is available to us?
Yeah, Councilmember Parkhill, that's a good note, and we will get data. So we will get data for number of, transactions down there, a number of boats, how long they've stayed down there. Essentially, we'll get a dashboard with data. And we'll obviously talk with Park Mobile as to, what specific we'll get, but we will have at least the basic data of how many people are down there, how long they're parking there for, if they're extending or, that sort of thing. So we'll have data from Park Mobile for sure.
Okay, good. What about sailboats? Are they allowed?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just-
Why not?
Is there a boat size that, can you pull up a kayak there, or do we have any rules related to that? I hadn't thought about that, but it just kind of came to me.
Yeah, Councilmember Parkhill, we do have some areas noted kind of on these maps that aren't necessarily boat slips, that you could certainly probably pull up a kayak or something like that. Yeah, they're kind of
The
noted as the
marine area.
small orange boats there that aren't necessarily slips and more or less dedicated mostly to those.
I just didn't know if we wanted any rules, but if not, we can reevaluate this at the end of the summer too.
Correct.
Me, it's watercraft is my philosophy. If they're going and they're using a slip and they're paying, that's their prerogative to do so. It's kind of like the scooter on the street having to pay to park or anything else in a
If I
regular.
pull up in my paddle board, my stand-up paddle, I have to pay?
If you're in a pay spot.
Just so I know.
Yeah.
I'm not coming around that
There
far.
you go. No,
I'll be in the water.
we'll be watching for you. Any other questions, Councilmember Parkhill?
No,
No.
thank you very much.
You're welcome. Couple of questions based on the conversation we've had this evening that I hadn't thought of before. So you indicated that there's the ability to have map functionality for users. Does the map show people available spots at that moment?
So, Madam Mayor, that's something we're going to have to specify with Park Mobile as to exactly what that will be. From my understanding, they can't have real-time availability on there. That could potentially be an option in the future, but we'd have to pay extra for that feature. But at this time, you can't get real live data or reservations.
Okay.
But those are features we could look into later.
And maybe at some point in the future. Okay. And then in terms of our dock masters, I recognize they're not there all day, but the app is also incredibly flexible in terms of how we configure it. And my question is, do we have the ability to allow for them to tip the dock masters in the app? Because they are still providing a service. I hadn't thought of that before.
I haven't thought of that either, but we can certainly bring that up with Park Mobile and see if there's that option within the app.
I like that.
Yeah.
Get tied to.
So, I mean, in the past, they've always provided gratuities, probably, I would assume, in cash, because it was just a gratuity at that point. But wonder if some people might be more apt to tip if they have the ability to do so in the app. Just a question. I also have been thinking about the education component, and have we given any thought to the value of maybe creating a small flyer that the dock masters can hand out to folks as they're coming in for the first month or two, especially if they're not using the app? It's not, hey, you're supposed to pay for parking, and again, a very friendly, welcome to Wayzata kind of message. We're glad you're here. Hey, by the way, did you see this new app where you can pay for your parking? It's a really neat feature we now have available instead of
Yeah,
shame on you.
that's a great idea.
It just something that we can hand out so that was one idea. And I really do like, again, the agility component to everything we've talked about tonight. Let's take some baby steps. Let's see how things work. Let's reassess. That data is going to be really super important. And I really like also the ability to, even as we talked with the contractor a few weeks ago, even having a program for residents. So, and we can look at that for year 2 and year 3. We just need to get this underway and need to keep it as straightforward as possible. But certainly, we have talked about offering that as a possible alternative. And then also, I think we had talked about, to Councilmember Iverson's point, even using some technology for enforcement, that there's technology out there, cameras and whatnot, that can be used for parking enforcement so that we're not using human labor or resources. So that's something we can potentially integrate into the future as well.
Yep, Madam Mayor, that's something we can certainly see how the first year goes and see what kind of enforcement or extra measures we need to take. That.
If needed.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Fabulous. Do we have a follow-up question?
I have one quick follow-up question, or a comment, really. Councilmember Parkhill asked about data, and you mentioned the dashboard, which I'm sure is going to be really helpful and insightful. But one thing I can pretty much guarantee you that won't be on that dashboard is what we are actually paying cumulatively in these 3%, 15%, and 45 cents per transaction fees. I have a feeling those are going to add up very quickly, and it's going to feel like a lot of money left out on the table. So I would make a note to have those things parsed out by the end of summer or end of the year, and look at either renegotiating those fees or finding, frankly, a better option, because I think that's going to be high.
Yep, that's a very good point. So the estimate then is that taking those fees into account, that's net
Correct.
to the city?
Correct.
All right, are we taking wagers? And this is so new for us.
I do not.
I don't know. All right, we're gonna, Pep Keiser, we're gonna come back.
Yeah, you come out.
It is what,
Madam Mayor, gambling is illegal in Minnesota, so we don't do that.
I see, okay. I see how this works. All right, no. Well, again, this is part of our strategic plan, right? And some of the initiatives there. And, the push from, council, I mean, let's be best in class, but let's be innovative, let's be agile. And we're trying to layer all those pieces together. And so I think we've come up with a good starting point. And we will continue to evolve and based on those learnings and that data. So I'm excited. But we have an ask of us, and that is for a motion. And the motion is to approve a professional services agreement with Park Mobile to implement an hourly boat parking payment system at the Broadway and Depot docks. Who is making that motion this evening?
I'll make that motion, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councilmember McDonald. Is there a second?
I'll make a second.
Thank you. Motion has been first and seconded. Further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? The motion passes. And that takes us now to the city manager's report.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just a couple quick things for you tonight. The forecast looks great. The weather is getting warmer. There's going to be more people outside, of course, and rightfully so. Right on cue, we've got a bunch of things going on. So there's Wayzata is getting busier, both as an organization and community. So later this week on Thursday, we've got the Wayzata State of the Cities address, where the mayor is going to be talking about all the great things we've accomplished and look forward to the future as well. The RSVP invites, they're sold out, or not sold out, but we've reached capacity. We're not charging.
I like sold out. That sounds better.
It does, yeah. It sounds a little bit more.
Sold out the arena.
Right. So we're apologize about that, but it's a good problem to have because that means we're going to have a lot of community members here listening to what the mayor has to say. And there will be a question and answer forum at the end, and then a happy hour at the beginning. So kind of the best of all worlds. Should be a fun night. We will likely accept a fair amount of walk-ins because we don't anticipate that everybody who RSVP'd online is going to be here. So for those that are listening at home or watching at home, if you really want to attend, rather than watching it online down the road, come to City Hall and we'll try to get you in. But we can't make any promises. We got a fire code that Chief Clapperich is going to hold us to, but we'll more than likely be able to get you in.
We did walk through
Yes.
before the workshop
Yes.
with Liv and our communication specialist, and I'm just really impressed. I am really impressed at the creativity, and I am incredibly optimistic that it's going to go off without any hitches. Right, Pep Keiser? You were there for that.
Absolutely. It's going to be great.
Yes. So, no, I am incredibly grateful for the work that's been put into it, and I'm really excited to see how it turns out.
Should be a great event. It starts at 4:30 and will last until about 6:30. And then the next week, just FYI, our Belcourt construction project starts. That starts on April 15th, so obviously the Belcourts will not be able to be utilized, but that project should only, I mean, it's only going to be a couple months, I think, at the most, right?
Yeah, we note July 15th as like the end date, but hopefully it's going to be sooner than that.
So that's progress, and that starts next week. We also have our Clapbridge Park survey. We're looking to get a little bit more feedback before we come back to the council with the final Clapbridge Park plan. So all those community members that are interested in providing feedback, if they haven't already, go to our website and get the link online to let us know what you think about more or less the final draft plans of Clapbridge Park.
Question for you on that. How many responses have we received?
Good question.
Yeah, Madam Mayor, I looked today and we had about 50. It's
Okay.
been open a week or so.
Do we have anything at Clapbridge Park on Wayzata Boulevard? So with Panaway the Wayzata Boulevard corridor study, we had QR codes to encourage people to go out, take a look. Have we done anything like that or considered it for Clapbridge Park?
Madam Mayor, so this is kind of halfway point, so we didn't do as much broadcasting of it. We'll have more community engagement kind of once we get more final plans. We'll probably do a lot more
Okay.
advertising of community engagement. So kind of tone it down for the midway point a little bit. But.
I'm just hoping that, I was going to say, it's a little tongue-in-cheek, because I know we don't have 50 people on the Parks and Trails Board, but I was hoping it wasn't all Parks and Trails Board members. No, I'm teasing. But we do want as much community feedback as we can at all stages, and so that would be really great if folks went out and took a look and took a few minutes of their time to respond.
And we've already done a lot of feedback last year. We had an open house. We've done some online surveys. I think we're getting pretty close. And this is really the heart and soul of our community. So even up to the last bit, the feedback we get really does matter because it's really the city's the residents' park. So
I'll
that closes on the 16th, and then as Planner Keyser mentioned, there'll be more opportunities in the future too.
Great. Well, as all joking aside, I mean, the amount of work that the Parks and Trails Board has put into this is astronomical. So I'm really excited to see things evolve and come to fruition for them.
Then we just got to get some money, more money for it.
Right.
Last but not least, next week, Thursday, April 18th at 5:30 will be when our local Board of Appeal and Equalization hearing will occur. We've had less folks call in this year, and that's generally a direct result of valuations are lower, estimates are lower. But we have been getting some calls, so typically we don't handle new appeals at the meeting, so we'll have to contemplate whether it makes sense to have another meeting before, I think, the early May or how we do that. But ultimately, there's going to be a lot less. It looks like there's going to be a lot less appeals this time around. So,
How many calls have we received?
city staff has only received a couple. So they've all been going through Hennepin County, and I think for the most part, he's been able to address and make some changes. Now we're in that period where even if he and the property owner agree on an adjusted value, it still has to go through us.
Okay.
So my hope is that we will only have a couple that still need some review, and then we'll have to determine how we want to process those.
So how many do we anticipate? I mean, those that have not been able to be resolved with?
Yeah, I think it's a matter of about a dozen-ish,
Okay.
maybe a little bit more, but
Yeah.
not
At
the,
125?
not 125 like last year. No,
Okay. And more the year before?
exactly.
All right.
That's all I have, Madam Mayor.
Well,
Thank you.
that's great news. Yes, Councilmember Iverson.
So a couple meetings ago, or maybe 6 weeks ago, we had talked about additional funding from the Conservancy to pay for a gap in funding, I think like $200,000. Just looking to see if we have any update on how they're doing with that fundraising.
A good question, Councilmember Iverson, and I totally forgot about my Panaway update, so that ties into that. Real quick, we will have the $1 million that the Conservancy has pledged towards Phase 2, which is the Lake Walk and the docks, before the project's completed. So we've already got most of that, but another payment will be coming shortly. And then the other item that was added on late last year when the city council moved forward with the current construction of the docks, which included Kebony that would, there is generally a $200,000 increase to the project as a result. And the Conservancy as a partner and felt strongly that the Kebony material was needed. They committed to fundraising for that portion. We haven't gotten any of that. I've basically said, by midsummer when we're at the project closeout stage, that's when we need it. I know that they're actively fundraising for that part of it now. So I'd be happy to meet with the Conservancy. We have a meeting actually on Thursday and get that information to the council.
That would be great. And when you say midsummer, is that July or is that August?
Well, a typical construction term is substantially completed, and when we open the boardwalk, by Memorial Day, it'll be substantially completed. There'll still be a few odds and ends that will need to be tidied up, such as the KA's work with the railroad crossings, for example, and a few other things. So my guess is that midsummer is when we'll be closing out the project, and the contractors have fulfilled their agreements with the city, and that's when we would need those last payments.
Okay, because that's when we are liable to pay for that additional cost.
Correct, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, an update would be really nice. Thank you.
I'll be happy to do that. Probably I can get the Friday or early next week.
Okay, thank you.
Perfect. Thank you. Anything else from the council? Staff? Anything? All right, how about a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
And a second?
Second, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? We are adjourned.